Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim's Special Edition. My name is Camel, but more excitingly, however, welcome back to the Elder Scrolls Detective series. A series in which we investigate, curate, speculate, hypothesize, theorize, and quite often simply highlight and discuss interesting, mysterious, and hidden things that can be found within the Elder Scrolls games. Today, we are going to scrupulously investigate and minutely process a burning question that has stuck with me for many years now, since I first played through the Dawnguard faction missions, introduced of course with the Dawnguard DLC for the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, within which many interesting, strange, and seemingly forbidden and unheard of things occur, while we visit abstract and far-flung corners of forgotten realms and rub shoulders with lost heroes and awakened villains, all the while preventing or fulfilling a vampiric doomsday prophecy to block out the sun. Yet, even with all that scale and scope going on, there is a certain minor character I have always been both drawn to and suspicious of. The man I speak of is a priest of Arkay, an Imperial named Florentius Baenius. I both simultaneously trust his words, yet I'm almost certain his alleged circumstances are simply not possible, or so improbable that anyone with a grain of logicianship would render it so unlikely it is effectively impossible. You see, Florentius claims to have ongoing divine experiences consisting of the constant communication with an Aedra, the divine Arkay, god of life and death. You see, the likes of such divine intervention and interaction are almost, if not entirely unheard of within the Elder Scrolls universe, which naturally makes Florentius Baenius very curious indeed. At face value, he is a discombobulated, frantic, frazzled, eccentric, muttering and murmuring man. Yet he's likable, he's friendly, he seems harmless, and comes across as completely genuine, all the while rather strange. So naturally, I've had to dig deep into the musty lore books and approach this confusing beast of a situation with an extravagantly honed spearhead of careful deduction dipped in a potent poison of evidential deconstruction. But despite my efforts, I still struggled to land a telling blow onto the question of whether this man truly communicates with Arkay. And because of this, I'm very much looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this investigation of the intriguing individual, Florentius Baenius. Now, if this kind of stuff does interest you, be sure to check out my other Elder Scrolls Detective videos that I have already done. They can be found down in the description via the Elder Scrolls Detective playlist link. Now, down there in the description, you can also find all of my social media links. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Twitter to keep up to date with what I'm up to. And be sure to check out the brand new merch store for the channel with over 100 items that have been carefully designed for lovers of the Elder Scrolls, like this camel Elder Scroll blanket designed by yours truly. It keeps you warm and up to date with lore while you watch these videos. But for now, let's get into the seemingly simple yet frazzlingly complicated question at hand. So, once we are an hour or two into the Dawnguard faction main missions, the leader of the Dawnguard, Isran, will ask a favor of us.
There are people I've met and worked with over the years. We need their skills, their talents, if we're going to survive this. If you can find them, we might have a chance.
Where can I find these people we need?
Right to the point, aren't you? I like that. Not like those fools in the Order. We should keep it small. Too many people and we'll draw unwanted attention to ourselves. I think we'll want Serene Gerard. Breton girl, whip smart and good with tinkering. Fascination with the Dwemer. Weapons in particular. Last I knew, she was out in the Reach, convinced she was about to find the biggest dwarven ruins yet.
She'll help us?
Might need a little convincing, but she should. You'll also want to find Gunmar. Big brute of a Nord. Hates vampires almost as much as I do. Got it into his head years back that his experience with animals would help. Trolls in particular, from what I hear. Last I knew, he was out scouring Skyrim for more beasts to tame. Bring the two of them back here, and we can get started on coming up with a plan. Find Serene and Gunmar, and maybe we can do something about this mess.
So we need to find Serene Gerard, a Breton who is considered an expert on Dwemer technology, and Gunmar, a Nord hunter and smith. Now after we have found them, recruited them, and they have settled into Fort Dawnguard, and we have saved the Moth Priest Dexian Evicus, if we speak to Serene Gerard, she will make a request of us.
Do you have a moment? Gunmar and I have been talking and, well, we're slightly worried. We both realized that if Isran's even allowed us in here, he must be really concerned. And if he's that concerned, the situation must be pretty bad. Make sense?
You're worried about what we're up against.
Yes. These vampires are a new threat, and a truly deadly one. Gunmar and I agree that we're going to need Florentius to help. Gunmar and I have a lot of work to do here, so we were hoping that maybe you could track him down.
Who is Florentius?
He's a priest of Arkay. Well, he was. It's complicated. He's a little eccentric, but we can trust him, and we could definitely use his skills.
Well, where can I find him?
Well, that's the thing. We don't know where he is. Haven't seen him in years. I think he had regular contact with the Vigilance, and I know Isran kept track of them. So maybe you could ask Isran if he knows anything? Just keep in mind that he might not like the idea.
Sure enough, we'll have to go now and have a chat with Isran. I need to find a man named Florentius. Ring any bells?
Who said something? Serene or Gunmar? I thought they'd have learned their lesson by now. I don't trust that man, and I don't want him here.
Well, Serene seems to think that we'll need his help.
I suppose she's right. I shouldn't let my personal feelings get in the way. Last I heard of him, he was aiding the vigilance of Stendarr at Ruunvald. He may still be there. If he can maintain some appearance of normalcy, I'll allow him to stay.
This Florentius sure seems like a divisive and dividing bloke. Anyway, we need to find him, so off we go to Ruunvald, a mine and Nordic ruin found in the southeastern corner of Skyrim, at the base of the Velothi Mountains. Once we arrive here, we will find a tent posted outside the entrance. If we stick our heads inside, it seems to have been left a mess. On the ground is a Dawnguard axe, suggesting that Florentius has been here, or someone else that rubs shoulders with the Dawnguard. Now on one of the bedrolls is a small booklet, Volk's Journal. Perhaps this can tell us more. Day 14. I knew I should have volunteered for the excavation earlier. For months, Morag had been going on to the Vigilance about detecting mystical energies deep in the East Mountains. Said he'd found some old tomes about the ruins of Ruunvald or something like that, a Nordic chamber thousands of years old. I remember thinking, yeah, if it's so old, how come no one's found it yet? There's plenty of adventurers wandering around these parts. Seemed like most of the other Vigilants agreed. We had more important things to do. But Morik took a team and went digging, and when he started turning up a long-buried temple, well, didn't I feel like a troll in a dung heap. Soon enough, he was sending back letters to the hall, begging for as many men as we could send. I didn't volunteer at first, still seemed like a myth to me, kinda like the Elder Scrolls 6. But when word came back that they'd hit the main chamber, I packed up and headed this way to help. Always did want to be a part of history, and better late than never, they say. Well, they didn't mention that the latecomers would be stuck with guard duty. I just sit up here all day watching for bandits and wolves, neither of which I've seen. Mostly I just see diggers coming up for supplies. Gotta say, I've been seeing them a lot less regularly, now that I think about it. Day 19. Alright, it's been 3 days since anyone's come up. The last one to emerge was Upper, and he just walked around a bit with a weird vacant look in his eyes. Told Florentius and me to come down as soon as we had the chance, then trudged back in. Something ain't right, and I aims to find out what. Volk. Very curious indeed. It would seem something rather odd took place here, and our man Florentius is mentioned. That's a good sign. Well, with our mission at hand and curiosity brimming in our minds, there is nothing other to do than push through the rotten wooden doors and plunge ourselves into the depths of Ruunvald. After a short jaunt, we'll come out into an open room with a skylight due to the cave ceiling eroding over time and falling in. Immediately, we will notice that there are people mining and wandering around, a good sign, or so we may think. These are the Vigilants of Stendarr, but something is clearly amiss, as around all of their heads is an effervescent emittance of an unnatural crimson fog. These Vigilants of Stendarr have been charmed by what means is currently unknown, but they will be hostile towards us, so we have to be ready to fight our way through here. Once we reach the bottom of the chamber, we will find a book atop a wooden crate. Throughout this dungeon, we will find several of these diaries, which foreshadow and slowly reveal what has happened here. In short, an Ultima woman named Minorn has charmed and brainwashed all of the Vigilants of Stendarr to do her bidding, mining ore for her like a personal army of mindless slaves, which does not bode well for Florentius. But there is one scribbling I would like to highlight here, the scripture of Minorn, which reads, "Glory be to Minorn, glory be to the mistress of all. My life for you, O beautiful saviour. Where once my feeble ramblings seemed so grand, I now realize they are but scratches on parchment, unworthy of you. Oh, that I could properly describe you. I would write 1,000 testaments to you. Damn my tiny thoughts, if only I were wiser. Minorn asks that we bring more here for her, more to worship her and do her bidding. I have sent word to the whole of the Vigilants to come. A simple lie was told, as they would not understand. Not until they saw her, oh glorious Minorn. But she is fearful. There are fools in this world that do not heed her beautiful voice. The god Florentius, sent from the beacon, he still prays to Arkay, an absentee god who pales in comparison to Minorn. I will pray to the goddess that I can see. May he rot in his cage. Oh, sweet, sweet Minorn. Gods be praised, by the sounds of it Florentius Baenius is still alive. Now, when we exit into the final chamber of Ruunvald Temple, we will see several figures standing in the fog-heavy room. Atop the stairs we will find an Ultima woman. This is the ever-praised Minorn. She has charmed, brainwashed, mind-controlled all of the Vigilants of Stendarr into mining ore for her, acting as her personal brigade to do her bidding. We will have to end all of their lives as they will be hostile, and even killing Minorn will not break the spell cast over the Vigilants of Stendarr. Once they have been dealt with, we must find Florentius. He can luckily be found alive and locked in a cage that can be opened with a key found on the body of Minorn.
I knew it! I knew Arkay would save me! I asked for help, and he sent you! You are a very welcome addition to this dreary place, my friend. I owe both you and Arkay a great deal. I'm sure I'll manage to repay him later, but you, what can I do to thank you?
You, sir, can meet me at Fort Dawnguard.
I suppose I could. What, pray tell, is there?
Isran needs your help.
Isran? My help? Is this some kind of a joke? Did Arkay put you up to this? Isran's done nothing but mock me. He's never given me the respect I deserve.
Please, Florentius, we need your help.
Look, I've just got myself out of quite a mess here, in case you haven't noticed. And while I appreciate your help, What's that? No, that's not what I... Yes, but... Are you sure? Really? Fine. Arkay says it's a good idea for me to go. I don't agree. But he's not the sort of fellow you can just ignore. I'll see you at Fort Dawnguard then. Don't worry. Arkay will show me the way.
As I said earlier, strange man, but he seems genuine. And sure enough, he just walks off and finds his own way back to Fort Dawnguard, not fearing direction nor danger. despite us literally coming here to get him back to Fort Dawnguard. But what is most interesting is that an entire battalion of religious servants, the Vigilants of Stendarr, all served a divine. Yet all became brainwashed by Minorn. Not a single one of them was saved by their god Stendarr. Yet Florentius did not suffer the same fate as the Vigilants. He just magically, miraculously was immune to Minorn's charms. Now, given that both Florentius and the Vigilants are servants of the Divines, yet Florentius was protected somehow, while an entire devout priesthood of Vigilants were not protected, well, that seems pretty sus, right? Florentius also alleges to have a communication and literal dialogue with Arkay. Well, it sure seems like there might be some validity to this claim given his miraculous immunity to Minorn's spells and charms. But we will look into this a lot more throughout this video, as this kind of divine-mortal relationship is almost unheard of, so naturally makes us very skeptical of what is allegedly taking place here. So now we will head back to Fort Dawnguard, where after a few days Florentius will arrive safely and settle into his new home. And now that we have him all to ourselves, we should listen and chat with him so we can really gauge his personality and claims of connection with Arkay. As to judge his character, we'll actually need to fully experience his character.
I once killed 30 vampires with my bare hands, you know. Ask Arkay, he'll tell you. Don't you worry about me. I've been through worse. I'll come out of this just fine. It is my sworn duty to see Arkay's wrath delivered to all the undead. It's usually a good bit of fun, too. Arkay be with you, my friend.
Hello, old chum.
Arkay says it's good that we're here, but I don't know. Something about this place doesn't feel right. What? No. Yes, I see. All right. Right, I'll settle in and then Arkay and I will start to put things right. Don't you worry.
Do you know anything of the old Dawnguard?
Oh, I've read a few things, heard a few more things. Arkay has told me a bit as well. The story they'd like you to believe is that they were such a noble bunch, doing the honorable thing and saving lives. Only I hear that's not quite how it happened. Secret organization, you see. No one to blame when homes are broken into, things stolen. Heard they'd go on midnight raids, pillaging and looting, and then stash the spoils somewhere, guarded by their sigil. Arkay tells me the Sunfire spell can break open those caches, but I've never found one. I think he might be lying to me.
Can you train me in restoration?
You know more than I do now. Arkay has us both beaten, but he's not giving up all his secrets. Arkay bless you, friend.
As we can see, he clearly hears, or at least thinks he hears, the voice of Arkay within his head. He could be hearing Arkay. He could be hearing something else's voice claiming to be Arkay, or he could be hearing nothing at all and just thinking he's hearing something. Now you might be thinking, and rightfully so, that the idea of an Aedra, a divine, a god talking to someone seems pretty reasonable. After all, this is a fantasy game. After all, the Daedra speak to mortals all the time.
A new hand touches the beacon.
And the Elder Scrolls is a universe in which innumerous amounts of much weirder things take place, like the entire Dwemer race vanishing from existence in an instant by touching the heart of a dead god with a dagger and hammer. A universe in which a 4,000-year-old wizard cloned himself 4 times into female versions, making daughters for himself. A universe in which this guy is still alive. It's unbelievable stuff. The Elder Scrolls is a mad universe where it seems anything is possible. So the idea of a divine talking to someone doesn't seem weird at all, at face value, does it? But finding examples of this is very, very difficult, let alone proven ones, and let alone constant communication like Florentius Baenius seems to experience. I have collected all of the examples of the Divines communicating and interacting with mortals that I could find after an extensive search, and there really isn't much. I'm sure that there are some other instances that you can let me know of down in the comments. But when it comes to the Divines, the Aedra directly interacting with mortals, we have very few examples, such as Saint Alicia, who lay dying and was visited by Akatosh, who bound her soul to the Amulet of Kings. This seems to be true, as when Martin Septim shattered the Amulet of Kings, he became an avatar of Akatosh, an undoubtable example of a divine interacting with mortals. Within the Elder Scrolls III Morrowind, we can encounter and interact with 3 avatars of the Divines: Amma Nim, an avatar of Mara, John Hawker, an avatar of Zenithar, and Wolf, an avatar of Tiber Septim, Talos, who funnily enough carries moon sugar on him. Once again, undeniable examples of Divines interacting with mortals. Now in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Archcurate Vertha says this:
"How dare you! I was the Archcurate of Ariel, girl. I had the ears of a god,"
suggesting that he once communicated with Auriel, or Akatosh as he is known within the Imperial Pantheon. This cannot be proven or disproven, as Archcurate Vertha doesn't actually do anything that proves this. Only his words, and words are wind. Similarly, during the quest The Book of Love in Skyrim, Dinya Balu claims to communicate with Mara, although this cannot be proven nor disproven. She says that Mara gives her visions and sends us on our way based on those alleged visions, but whether this is true simply isn't known. It could be true, or she could have word of mouth, or people coming to the temple directly looking for help, or they could send letters looking for help. We simply cannot say either way whether this is true or not. A common thread throughout these so-called divine interactions. In a seemingly similar vein, during the quest The Heart of Dibella within the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, we are sent to retrieve the Sibyl of Dibella.
The ceremony you so rudely interrupted was the exalted protocol of the Dibellan Sibyl. I don't expect you to know what that means. Suffice to say that our Sibyl was recently lost to us. Through the protocol, we have seen the home of the next Sibyl, to the north in a small village pressed against the stone. If you can travel there and retrieve our young Sibyl, your transgression will be forgiven. The Sibyl of Dibella spends her entire life in direct communion with the goddess. From the time she's a little girl to the moment she expires, she is a direct connection with the Heavenly Mother. From her reverie, we know the mind of our god. We have had a vision of the next Sibyl, living in a village to the north. She must be brought to the temple for her reverie to begin. It's considered a great honor for the family. Their daughter will never know hardship, and the goddess blesses them with great bounty.
Our daughter, Theotra, was taken from here. The Forsworn descended, and they didn't touch anything else, just our little girl. It was the Forsworn from Broken Tower. Never been much trouble before.
But it turns out that the Sibyl has been stolen by a group of Forsworn. Oh blast, what a rotten coincidence. Or was it? As this Sibyl of Dibella just so happens to have been stolen by a group of Forsworn who worship Dibella. Now, the Sibyl of Dibella is a chosen prophetess who communicates with Dibella for the Sisterhood of Dibella. This Sibyl is chosen by a vision given to the priestesses by Dibella herself, apparently, which proves nothing, and they could, just be choosing any random old girl. Who's the chosen one? That one. But before the Temple of Dibella even knew of their new Sibyl, she had already been stolen by a Dibellan worshipping group of Forsworn. Now, what are the chances that 2 Dibellan sects just so happen to have randomly chosen the exact same girl as a prophetess of Dibella? That is, quite frankly, highly unlikely, and it would seem that there is in fact some form of divine cause, choice, and interaction with mortals here. A refreshing breath in this short list of spurious divine claims. Another example is in the Elder Scrolls Online. We have another case that seems legitimate. When the Prophet and yourself are trying to escape Molagbal's Plane of Oblivion, Cold Harbor, the Prophet calls on Akatosh for help, and it would appear that the divine Akatosh does in fact intercept and cast down his divine hands.
Great Akatosh, dragon god of time, I require your strength. Let the way be opened. Let these wandering souls return home. Let the will of Ruunvald be denied. Hurry! We must go now!
The prophet asks for help, and something happens in which a portal randomly back to Mundus is opened. If it was the prophet himself opening the portal via his own magical means, I don't know why he would ask for Akatosh's help. So this event does seem legitimate, although in terms of cold hard facts and black and white yes and no's, it is hard to say, but it does appear to be divine intervention. And finally, in a fashion oh so similar to Florentius himself, we have a man from the Elder Scrolls Online called Thronekeeper Farvad, who claims to be in constant communication with Tuwaka. Now, Tuwaka is the Akudan and Redguard interpretation of Arkay. This is never directly stated, but Arkay and Tuwaka are both gods of the cycles of life and death and transference of souls into the afterlife. Also, the symbol that represents Tuwaka might look familiar, and that is because it is identical to that symbol that represents Arkay, further concreting that they are in fact the same god and just different interpretations in different cultural pantheons. Now, this Thronekeeper Farvad is a priest of Tuwaka, just as Florentius Baenius is a priest of Arkay. They serve the same god. They play the same role. And ever so interestingly, Thronekeeper Farvad claims to constantly speak with Tuwaka, just as Florentius claims to constantly speak to Arkay. But let's hear it from the horse's mouth to get a better read of this character.
It also explains why Tuwaka is so angry. He speaks to me. He says the temple must be cleansed, and now. Tuwaka says you will have the pleasure of killing this Uwafa. With his help, of course. First, you must light the final brazier over there. Then, Tuwaka's breath will come. Uwafa has sealed himself inside the sanctum with my priests. I fear for them, but Tuwaka will help us. He will unseal the doors. Then you can go in and kill this necromancer bastard. Are you ready to witness the power of a god, my friend? Go now, and light the final brazier. Do not fear the power of Tuwaka. You and I, we are his champions in this. Well, Tuwaka tells me that you must do battle with the spirits of the long-dead giant Goblin King. To what end? I do not know. But only fools doubt Tuwaka's wisdom. Tuwaka says there is great wisdom to be gleaned from this. Tuwaka shall be watching. Tuwaka says they seek to teach and to test. Tuwaka tells me the heroic spirits have returned to their slumber. Tuwaka has shared some of his wisdom with me.
Now, much like Florentius, he doesn't seem to be a phony. He seems genuine and, well, much more composed than Florentius. There are hints of divine intervention, like Tuwaka's breath unsealing a tomb and Tuwaka telling Farvad what he needs to do next, but it's not quite enough for me. Thronekeeper Farvad will say things like,
He has given his blessing. Go into the inner sanctum and kill Uwafa!
Then we go in, kill the guy, then when we come out, he drops some mad knowledge like this.
I am very proud. Tuwaka says that you smote this Uwafa mightily.
Well, yeah, what did you think happens? Go in there and kill the guy. Okay, we go in, kill the guy, come out alive, and then he's all, oh, Tuwaka tells me you killed him. Yes, obviously, you don't exactly need divine intervention to figure that one out. Tuwaka, a god, a divine, sure gives some useless information that is just observable.
I do not know where the other Ansei wards have been taken, but Tuwaka tells me that you must go east, my friend. He says that is the next step on your journey.
Go east to no specified location. Well, thank you very much, Tuatha. This isn't very helpful considering we're on the western side of the zone. When he says this, just about everything's east of here. Not very impressive for a god, is it? Now, Farvad does sometimes appear exactly where you need to go and claim that Tuatha told him to go there.
Now I understand why Tuatha bid me to come here to Hunding's watch.
And you know, it could be Tuatha telling him to go there. Or he could have followed us, or he could have had word of mouth that we went there. He could have just thought about where he thinks we would go next, and so he heads there himself, etc, etc. Him being where we are and saying that Tuatha sent him doesn't actually prove anything. There is an instance where Tuatha apparently opens a portal for us.
Tuatha extends his hand. You need only enter the portal, and you will be transported back to the desert below.
But it only takes us down the hill and is no great show of power. Any old fool can open a portal, so while it might well be Tuatha doing it, Farvad just saying that Tuatha did it doesn't actually prove anything in terms of divine cause, as usual. Unfortunately, there is a long list of examples and occurrences that could be the doings of a divine, or it could not be. Opening a portal is nothing special, opening a sealed door is nothing special, saying a god told me to do this and that when the thises and that's are obvious and observable isn't anything special either. Proving or disproving the involvement of a divine is incredibly difficult to do. So as we can see, actual divines interacting with mortals is ever so incredibly rare, and most claimed cases are just too ambiguous and vague to be proven. Don't forget, I looked long and hard. I asked you guys in the community tab right here on YouTube of any examples of divines interacting with mortals. I asked the Fudge Muppet guys, I asked lore masters and mistresses like Lady Nerevar, and the examples that we just went through are the ones that we could collectively find. I'm sure that there are more that we have missed, but the point is that these divine interactions are ever so rare, and even harder to prove as legitimate or even plausible. Just like real life, someone says something happened, it doesn't mean it happened. So in regards to Florentius, this does make proving or disproving his claims of constantly talking with Arkay ever so difficult and probably impossible. There are a few more interactions with Florentius that I'd like to bring to light that will feed us more information. During the Dawnguard missions, if we speak to Florentius and ask him what we can do to help, he will say this.
I've been poring over some of the tomes left here in the keep. Interesting stories indeed. Seems the previous incarnation of the Dawnguard had, at one time, some interesting toys. Arkay and I think it could be a great advantage for us. You should look into retrieving it.
What will I be up against?
What's that, Lord? Well, should I tell her? Falmer, if I understand Arkay correctly. Nothing you can't handle. Go with the light.
Sure enough, when we head to the location, it will be filled with Falmer, and the ancient artifact will also be present here. How could he possibly know these things, knowing the location of a long-lost ancient weapon and what enemies reside within that location? It seems to be divine intervention. In a similar fashion throughout the Dawnguard quests, he will hit us with something along these lines.
Arkay has some grave news, friend. Your friend, kidnapped! A vicious Night Stalker rules over a group of bandits. Seeks to gain leverage over the righteous. Arkay's never clear on life and death. Is she still alive? There's always hope.
One of our friends has been kidnapped by vampires, and Florentius seems to know who they were, who took them, and where they can be found. Sure enough, if we head to the location given, there will be vampires, and our friend will be there being held hostage.
You came for me. How did you know? I thought I was going to die in here. Thank you. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine.
Much like the location of a long-lost artifact, how could Florentius possibly know such things? It sure seems like divine intervention at face value, right? Well, yes, at face value it does seem to be divine intervention. But if we look at Skyrim as a whole, there are many quest givers within the game, like even Gunmar and Serene Gerard of the Dawnguard, that give us the locations of items or people that they have no right of knowing, yet they don't claim to have any form of divine help. Just think about it, how many quests do people say, okay, you need to go and get this thing, it's found at this location, when if you really think about it, they wouldn't have any way of knowing such things. So we can assume such things as they have word of mouth, they've been tipped off, they asked the right people, whatever it may be. We can see that knowing such things like locations of items and people, as Florentius does, doesn't actually require divine intervention, as basically most quest givers in Skyrim have these magical skills. So as epic and godly as it may seem, Florentius having this kind of information doesn't actually prove that Arkay is involved at all. It can't be proven nor disproven, only said that it still isn't actual proof that he is in fact speaking to Arkay. And once again, in a similar fashion, when questioned about the old Dawnguard, Florentius will say this.
Heard they'd go on midnight raids, pillaging and looting, and then stash the spoils somewhere, guarded by their sigil. Arkay tells me the Sunfire spell can break open those caches, but I've never found one. I think he might be lying to me.
Suggesting that there are some kind of secret chests hidden around the world that can be opened with a Sunfire spell. Interestingly, these caches do actually exist in-game. However, they cannot be opened with a Sunfire spell. No such Sunfire openable caches exist. Now, this could be an oversight by the devs, or this supposed Arkay could be lying to Florentius. How ungodly of him. Or, you know, something like he could have unintentionally given Florentius false information, which seems unlikely for a literal god to not know what they're talking about. At first, it seems very curious that Florentius would have knowledge of these ancient caches hidden away by the Dawnguard of old. How could he possibly know of something so strange and simple like little chests from eons ago? Well, actually, there are 3 members of the current Dawnguard whose job it is to refill them. So this shows that knowledge and locations of these caches is something that the modern Dawnguard knows about. They are no secret, so Florentius knowing of them is no sign of divine intervention either. Arkay could have told him about them, but the fact that he knows that they exist doesn't prove a damn thing. So we're all left here sitting around like a bunch of scamps scratching our heads. Does Florentius Baenius actually speak to Arkay? It's just so hard to say. Most of the evidence or instances in which it would seem he does are mostly all reachable by non-divine means. Yet, perhaps like me, you just simply believe him. I think this is because he lacks sacrimony. He doesn't hold himself above others. He doesn't see himself as holier than thou. He doesn't consider himself to be more important than everyone else. He doesn't strut around as, oh, I'm the chosen one, the voice of a god, the holy champion of Arkay. He isn't trying to prove anything to anyone. He's just going about his business. And he sure has that slight franticness and social jitteriness that someone who heard voices within their head would have. These attributes go beyond evidence and lean more into our intuition, our gut feeling. And for me at least, make me believe that he does in fact hear a voice in his head. Whether this is Arkay or not, well now that is an interesting question to explore. Given, as we have seen, divines interacting with mortals is scarcer than a new Elder Scrolls game, it would seem much more plausible that if Florentius Baenius does in fact hear a voice in his head, it would not be a divine, but someone or something else. Now, if it were someone other than Arkay, they would not reveal themselves to Florentius, because obviously the only thing that Florentius is going to listen to is the voice of his god, Arkay. Now let's just say as a hypothetical example that Sheogorath was talking to Florentius and went, psst, hey, priest of Arkay, it's me, Sheogorath. Florentius is going to go, ah, Daedra, and not hear a bar of it. But if Sheogorath goes, psst, hey, it's me, Arkay, Florentius is going to go, ooh, I'm listening. So if it is someone else talking to Florentius, they would pretend to be Arkay, so that Florentius would follow what they say. Anyway, let's explore this thread of thought into who would and could be communicating with Florentius Baenius. Straight out of the gate, I think it would likely be a Daedric prince, as they are known to communicate with mortals much more often. But this raises the question, why? Why would a Daedric prince or anyone else help Florentius Baenius? Or anyone for that matter? Well, the most important thing to note is that Florentius Baenius is a priest of Arkay. I don't know if I've mentioned that. His duty is to protect the cycle of life and death, protecting the sacred dead, funeral rites, and the proper resting of souls. So anything in the realm of undead is not on. This is important because keep in mind when we met him at Ruunvald and bid him to come to join the Dawnguard with us.
Look, I've just got myself out of quite a mess here, in case you haven't noticed. And while I appreciate your help, What's that? No, that's not what I... Yes, but... Are you sure? Really? Fine. Arkay says it's a good idea for me to go. I don't agree. But he's not the sort of fellow you can just ignore. I'll see you at Fort Dawnguard then. Don't worry. Arkay will show me the way.
He was not interested, yet the voice in his head told him to come to Fort Dawnguard, to come and bolster the ranks of the vampire hunting faction with his presence and skills. This heavily implies that whoever is speaking to Florentius wishes to smite the undead, or more specifically vampires. Vampires are of course considered undead and are the doing of Molag Bal when he forcefully created the first vampire with an unwilling victim, Lemay Bal. If you do want to learn more about vampires and their creation and their different bloodlines, check out the video above, we explore all of that there. But back to this video, with all of this stuff in mind, we can conclude that whoever communicates with Florentius Baenius either hates Molag Bal, hates the undead, or hates vampires, or a combination of the three. With this in mind, well, Meridia is not a fan of the undead, and given that Florentius Baenius, a priest of Arkay, protects the sacred dead, etc., well, these are virtues that Meridia appreciates, leaning into motivations for Meridia to theoretically want to help Florentius Baenius in aiding the removal of vampires via joining the Dawnguard. It could also be Boethia, as she has a rivalry with Molag Bal, although the cause and conditions of this isn't really known, so this is more unlikely. Now, in a strange twist of very unlikely fate, the voice in Florentius's head could be Lemay Bal, the first vampire. This is a pretty out there crackpot theory, which will be followed by another, but let's flesh it out. Lemay Bal was a Nedic woman known as Lemay Bealthag. She was a priestess of Arkay sometime during the early First Era. Now, Molag Bal turned her into the first vampire through a non-consensual ritual. Lemay then went on to hate both Molag Bal for the desecration of her body and soul, and also to hate Arkay for not protecting her against Molag Bal. Now, with this in mind, if this were Lemay Bal speaking to Florentius, she would have motivation to help Florentius in helping the Dawnguard destroying vampires and therefore thwart Molag Bal, and also control a priest of Arkay to her bidding. As an up you to Arkay, you know, she gets to puppeteer this holy priest, killing two birds with one stone. Now, as I said, this is highly unlikely, as the idea in itself is pretty ridiculous. But weirder things have happened within the Elder Scrolls, and of course Lemay Bal would have to be thousands of years old, but that is completely possible for a vampire within the Elder Scrolls, and Lemay is known to have survived a very long time. She hasn't been seen or heard of for at least 1,000 years at the time the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim takes place, but she was seen in the Elder Scrolls Online, which is set at least 3,300 years after her transformation into a vampire. So another 1,000 years onward to the time of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim? That's not totally unreasonable. So Lemay Bal whispering to Florentius is possible, but exceedingly unlikely. Nonetheless, it's an interesting vein of thought to explore. And the second crackpot theory is rather interesting. So I went through all of the Imperial characters in all of the Elder Scrolls games and found that Florentius Baenius is one of 4 characters with the last name Baenius, suggesting that Florentius does in fact have 3 ancestors within the games that we know about. Now 2 of these ancestors appear in the Elder Scrolls Online, the first being Sabenda Baenius, an Imperial outlaw found outside Port Hunding with no other features to note. The second being Brachhius Baenius, an Imperial shield of Senkal, found in Senkal's Merchant Square with no other notable features. The third, however, is very interesting, and that is one Pustula Baenius, an Imperial acrobat, but very interestingly, a vampire. Sadly, this character is an unused one from the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind and doesn't actually appear in-game. But it's very curious indeed that Florentius Baenius seems to have a recent ancestor who was a vampire. Now they could be dead or they could still be alive, as the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind was only 200 years before the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. Now could it be that Pustula Baenius was turned into a vampire against his will? Maybe he hated being a vampire. Perhaps he is now dead and trapped within Cold Harbor and hates all aspects of what his vampiric existence was and has become. Well, with these possible aspects in mind, could the voice in Florentius Baenius' head in fact be the voice of his vampiric ancestor, Pustula Baenius, connected in some way to his descendant Florentius, posing as Arkay as so Florentius will listen to him, guiding him and helping him fortify the Dawnguard to swat out the looming vampiric reign, as so he can stop the life and death he hated so much from happening to others. A very curious line of thoughts. While it is a bit out there, so is Florentius and so is this whole situation, so it's interesting and possible nonetheless. Although, highly unlikely. But you know what else is highly unlikely? Arkay speaking to Florentius, so I guess this is feasible. But that brings us back to the one who hates Molag Bal and vampires most of all, and that is rather fittingly Arkay. Even if Florentius didn't claim to speak to Arkay, if we had to do the maths and figure out who would have the most motivation to help Florentius and the Dawnguard thwart the vampiric servants of Molag Bal from the face of Nirn, it would be the god of life and death, the divine, the Aedra Arkay. Now the reason for this can be found within a little known book called Opusculus Lemay-Bal Ta Mesamorite, a brief account of Lemay-Bal and the restless death, which reads and reveals, as brighter grows light, darker becomes shadow. So it passed that the Daedra Molag Bal looked on Arkay and thought the Aedra prideful of his domain over the death of man and Mur, and it was sooth. Bal, whose sphere is wanton oppression and entrapment of mortal souls, sought to thwart Arkay, who knew that not man nor Mur nor beastfolk of all Nirn could escape eventual death. The Aedra was doubtless of his sphere, and so Molag Bal set upon Nirn to best death. Tamriel was still young and filled with danger and wondrous magic when Bal walked in the aspect of a man who took a virgin, Lemay Bealfag, from the Nedic peoples. Savage and loveless, Bal profaned her body, and her screams became the shrieking winds, which still haunt certain winding fjords of Skyrim. Shedding a lone droplet of blood on her brow, Bal left Nirn, having sown his wrath. Violated and comatose, Lemay was found by nomads and cared for. A fortnight hence, the nomad weird woman enshrouded Lemay in pall, for she had passed into death. In their way, the nomads built a bonfire to immolate the husk. That night, Lemay rose from the funeral pyre and set upon the coven still aflame. She ripped the throats of the women, ate the eyes of the children, and, forced herself upon their men as cruelly as Bal had ravished her. And so, Lemay, who is known to us as Blood Matron, imprecated her foul aspect onto the folk of Tamriel, and begat a brood of countless abominations, from which came the vampires, most cunning of the night horrors. And so was the scourge of undeath wrought upon Tamriel, cruelly mocking Arkay's rhythm of life and death through all the coming eras of the Etada. And for all his sadness, Arkay knew that this could not be undone. So, as we can see, Mologbal created vampires to spite, torture and ruin the holy cycle of life and death that Arkay holds so dear. From this we can surmise that the most likely candidate for someone speaking to Florentius Baenius out of all the possibilities is actually Arkay, if we base it purely on motive. The very same entity that Florentius claims is speaking to him in the first place. I am interested to hear who you think, if anyone, is communicating with our man, Priest of Arkay, Florentius Baenius. Now the second issue that has troubled me is why? A literal god, a divine, an Aedra, wanting to enact revenge, vengeance, justice, whatever it may be, unto their enemy. I mean, sure, that makes total sense. But the means in which it takes place? Like, really? Is this the best the divines have? You would expect something a bit more epic, right? Like when the avatar of Akatosh faces off against Mehrunes Dagon and smashes him back to oblivion. But Arkay whispering to a priest who honestly doesn't actually do much at all in regards to stopping Mologbal and his vampires? Florentius sells potions, trains in restoration, and tells us where we can find a handful of old artifacts that really don't actually help us at all in stopping the blood prophecy. And occasionally he'll tell us that one of our friends has been kidnapped. This divine intervention, these acts of a god, are pitiful in the scope of everything. Okay guys, we need to take down these vampires, we need to get one back on Mologbal for creating them in the first place. Who's got some ideas of how we can do this, as literal gods? Arkay puts up his hand. Oh, I know. Let's whisper in the ear of a crazy priest that no one believes, and then he can send the Dragonborn into a few caves and maybe sell him a potion. What do you think? Okay, Arkay, you kicked off the Council of Stopping Vampires. That is the most useless, ill-thought-out, asinine, half-witted, unimaginative, lackluster plan of divine intervention I've ever heard, and hopefully will ever hear. If you really think about it, a god, this is the best way a god can do something. I mean, I have lost all faith. Also, if you help the vampires fulfill the prophecy and invade Fort Dawnguard, you can just simply kill Florentius Baenius. Arkay doesn't step in. If we went to strike him down and a beam of light shot down and teleported Florentius away, then I'd be like, okay, Arkay stepped in, it's actually something actually happened. But that doesn't happen, and well, nothing happened. All of Arkay's efforts die instantly with Florentius. So with that in mind, does Florentius Baenius truly speak with Arkay? Look, just about all of the evidence points to no. Claims of divine intervention within the Elder Scrolls can be counted on a few fingers. Provable occurrences of divine intervention within the Elder Scrolls can be counted on even fewer fingers, such as the vision of the Sibyl of Dibella and Akatosh meeting Saint Alicia, Akatosh fighting Mehrunes Dagon and Akatosh teleporting us and the Prophet out of Cold Harbor. The only actual piece of evidence of divine intervention in Florentius Baenius' case is his resistance/immunity to the spell of Minorn. Apart from that, while it might be very convenient to call his actions and his knowledge the workings of a god whispering to him, when we really scrutinize the evidence, it's just inconclusive, and the things he does and performs can be achieved without divine intervention, as shown with many other characters within the game, or even the Dawnguard, having knowledge of locations of people and artifacts and items, the Dawnguard caches, what have you. But, perhaps like me, despite all of this, you still just go, I think he is hearing the voice of Arkay, which is kind of annoying because there's really no evidence pointing towards that apart from our gut feeling, or my gut feeling at least. His lack of sacrimony, his lack of trying to prove to people that he is in fact talking to Arkay, the fact that he just seems genuine, at the very least, he thinks that he's hearing a voice. Step up from that, he's hearing the voice of something, and the step up from that is he's actually hearing the voice of Arkay. But this, as far as I can tell, cannot be proven nor disproven. I just got a hunch. With that said, in reality, it's probably not true. But what I am truly excited for and ever so curious about is to hear your thoughts on this topic. Does Florentius Baenius, an Imperial Priest of Arkay, truly speak to a god, a divine? Does he speak to anyone at all? If not Arkay, then who? The Daedric Prince Meridia? The Daedric Prince Boethia? The first vampire, Lemay his vampiric ancestor, Pustula Baenius? Or perhaps you have another idea as to who could be whispering into the head of Florentius. If so, let me know who and why they would want to help this man. It's a strange and bewildering case indeed. But it's all in a day's work, or 3 weeks' work, when it comes to investigating the Elder Scrolls series and its many strange stories. So I do hope that you have learnt something new about the beautifully mad universe that these wonderful games take place in, the Elder Scrolls. If you have any information, facts, evidence, speculation, theories, or anything to do with Florentius Baenius and his supposed whispering friend, be sure to leave a comment down below. I would love to hear what you have to say. If you do have any ideas for something that should be covered in an Elder Scrolls Detective series video, be sure to let me know. I'll look into whatever strange and obscure topics you present. If you did enjoy this video, please do me a kindness and leave a like. Leave a comment with your Elder Scrolls Detective video ideas and your thoughts on our friend the Priest of Arkay, Florentius Baenius. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos similar to this one, please subscribe. It helps me know that people enjoy these kind of videos and will result in more of them in the long run. Be sure to click the little bell icon next to the subscribe button right here on YouTube so that you will be notified when a new Elder Scrolls Detective video is uploaded. My other Elder Scrolls Detective videos can be found down in the description via the Elder Scrolls Detective playlist link. Down there are also all of my social media links. Be sure to check all of that out and to follow me on Instagram and Twitter so you can keep up to date with what I'm up to and help me out when I need help. And of course, be sure to check out the brand new merch store. There's a ton of cool stuff on there, most of which I painstakingly designed myself. And if you did enjoy this video and you would like to help support the channel in a more personal way, well, first of all, you can buy a piece of merch that helps me out greatly and you also get something cool. You can become a patron on Patreon, or you can join the channel right here on YouTube with the join button. As I'm sure you know, all of my time and energy goes into making these videos that I create for you to enjoy, so your support is most genuinely appreciated and welcomed in any and all forms. Leave a like, leave a comment, share the video with a friend, watch my other videos, follow my socials, check out the merch store, etc, etc. So thank you very much for watching, thank you for supporting the channel. I've been Camel and I will see you very shortly in the next video. I'll see you there soon.
This ends now!